I just realized I've not been recording for the last 3 hours. I'm not going to go back. I'm just going to read from here. Sorry, everyone. Pick your poison, then come back to the couch. They played poker and everyone who lost and to take a shot of their preferred liquid. Jack noticed Sarah's eyes beginning to droop. I think that's enough for this little one. We have 3 hours before dinner, enough time for a nap. Don't mind us, take your beauty to bed. Well, I think I'm going to take a nap. Going to take a nap. Lucas stretched. A few others stood to leave, including Cora. Doodly-doo. Sarah really was tired. She simply pulled back the comforter and tucked herself in, and he tucked himself around her, kissing and tasting the exposed skin around her neck. Jack, you can keep doing that, but... But what? He spoke into the flesh under her chin. It makes me feel strange. How does it make you feel strange? I want more. She started to unbutton her shirt. He grabbed her hands. No, I won't be able to control myself. What I'm doing is foolish enough. But I ache. Jack buried his head in her hair. So do I. He kissed her once more on the forehead and settled in, resting his head on the swell of her breasts. Best to just sleep. But they were only able to have a few minutes of rest before both of their phones went off. Leonard Marksman and Amelia are escorting Servino Sr. and Georgie and Eloise Baxter towards the dining room with staff. Straighten your clothes, it's showtime. Doodly-doo. Jack and Sarah made it back to the dining room, in time to hear the beginnings of panic in Leonard Marksman's voice, after Amelia had reported her sister Cora was not in her room. He immediately called up security, owning the hotel did have its benefits, quickly determining what room she entered. The entire party marched forth and caught Lucas giving Cora a few of her firsts. Before dinner was settled, the wedding venue had been determined. Jack had already booked the hall and made the same offer of a double wedding. The elders were satisfied, if not happy. Servino Sr. pulled Jack aside. I know where Freddie is, but where's Jason? I thought he'd gone to get you. I haven't seen him. Is there anyone else missing from your party? Give me a minute. Jack made a show of contacting a few people. Sorry, I only know Jason left. He did take his luggage. We're missing a few people, but... But what, Jack? The old man said impatiently. They should be down for dinner. I could go alert them. I'll come with you. Jack pulled on Sarah's elbow. We're going to go retrieve other guests for dinner. They may have lost track of time. A deep voice interrupted. I'll come with you. I wanted to freshen up before dinner. Alan winked at Jack. A few other people voiced the same and started out the doors. Servino Sr. was at Jack's other elbow and his ear. Are we going to catch someone? If we do... Please assist in a repeat of this afternoon's events, and I'll make it a triple wedding. The old man snorted. Jack stopped in front of Noah's door, but Alan produced a card key and opened the door without alerting the occupants. They were asleep, but evidence of the afternoon's activities was obvious in the room. Alan walked to the side of the bed and smacked Noah hard on the backside. And I believe that's one word. Before waking the two, the crowd had not reacted strongly, having already exhausted their shock from earlier, so the only screams came from the bed. Congratulations, cousin. I'll pay for your wedding dress. Jack stood with his arms crossed and a wide grin on his face. Angela screamed at Jack and threw a pillow at him. Noah wrapped his arm around her shoulders and kissed her cheek. She instinctively pushed at him, then remembered herself and hugged him back. Thank you, Jack. Thanks for inviting me. Noah looked pleased with himself. Jack, here, will share his wedding venue with you, so you can return with us to the continent. Oh. Alan, A.D.D. added, period. Jack here will share his wedding venue with you, so you can return with us to the continent in the new year and show off your lovely bride. It's a deal. No magic potions needed to be used. Oh, get rid of that. It's a deal. No magic potions needed to be used, just opportunity and greed. Jack hugged Sarah to his side. Well, Mr. Marksman, it looks like it's going to be quite the affair. Doodly-doot, doodly-doot. Angela's mother arrived during dinner and was seething, but her daughter made a show of affection for the young man. Noah assured them that his family would arrive in time for the wedding. Sarah wrapped her arms around Jack's neck so she could pull herself up and whisper into his ear. His ear. 2 down, and who knows how many to go, but I'll just keep batting them away. He tickled her waist, and she laughed, sitting back in her chair properly. Doodly-doot. The morning brought more elders and cousins, and a number of very young people. Sarah had arranged for a trip to the tailor shop after brunch. She'd already given her Aunt Marie heads up to call her Lily. Oh, it could be a heads up to call her Lily and not to ask too many questions. There are far too many people trying to crowd into the small shop. There were far too many people trying to crowd into the small shop. Martha and Veronica, the mothers of the other brides, Martha now, it's... what's her name again? Eloise. Eloise. E-L-O-I-S-E. E-L-O. Yeah. E-L-O. Eloise. And Veronica. It wasn't Veronica. Martha. Oh, I'm wrong. I am so wrong. Control Z. Martha is the mother of Angela, and Veronica is the mother of Cora. Martha and Veronica, the mothers of the other brides, along with a few of the matrons of the groom's side, insisted on coming, including Alan and Adam. Sarah stepped onto the box and quieted the crowd. You want to pick out... You will... Oh, you need to pick out fabrics today. Not want to. Need to. You need to pick out fabrics today, and Aunt Marie will be taking everyone's measurements. I mean everyone, Grandpa Leonard. Sarah went through the motions with Aunt Marie, demonstrating the expectations, while a small, neatly dressed man pulled out appropriate samples. Sarah assisted Marie, having done the job for so many years. And they made their way through the crowd efficiently. Jack already knew the style he wanted. He imagined the two of them standing together in their matching quipos, and he knew they would own the stage. Sarah slid her arm into the crook of Jack's elbow and ran her fingers over the fabric he was examining, a creamy white rough silk with gold thread wound through it. You have an amazing eye. Yes, well, I did select you. Didn't I? She held on to his forearm, but slid her hand down over his backside and pinched him. I think we should have matching dresses. Jack spoke up. Lily and I will be wearing something similar to what you saw at dinner our first night. You can plan accordingly, though I think it would be redundant. Each of you should express your own personality. We don't have to all be on stage at the same time. A-N-G-E-L, Angela. True, but our guests might get a bit bored. I think Alan would look dashing in a suit like Jack had. Adam said sheepishly. Adam, you would look amazing in one as well. I suppose you're the best men. Alan looked at Jack. You're right. You're my groomsman. We need to match. Pick your fabric. I'm paying. Lily, you're going to have to measure everyone when we get back. Did you get Johnson? Sarah pulled the giant up to the box, but she stepped up and stepped on the boxer. Stepped up on the boxer. Stepped up on the box her Alessi self and started with his neck. Sarah pulled the giant up to the box, but she stepped up onto the box herself and started with its neck. No, she stepped up. Box herself. That's fine. It was not clear enough from an earlier sentence. Sarah pulled the giant up to the box, but she stepped up into the box herself and started with his neck. Can I have one too, Angela? I think I would look so handsome lined up with all of them. May I? Noah begged. As long as your fabric matches my dress. Jack noticed her eyes slid between the men. Then she smiled at him, wrapping her arms around her Noah. The small, neat man took to the box. There's no rush to decide. Lily has all of our designs online, and I have another idea we can work. All of our designs online, comma. And if you have another idea, we can work with you. Most important thing is to pick your fabrics today. I want to make sure that I have what you're after. Lucas called out. I want what they're getting, a quid pro quo. Quipo, you gentlemen will be lovely. A lovely match set. Would the elders like the same? Why not? Never had one. Comma. Called out Servino Sr. There were no other objections. I have drawings, Cora's small voice broke through. They are good at working with people. Why don't we stay after and let... Sarah came to her side. Took her hand. Took Cora's hand. Period. They are good at working with people. Why don't we stay after and let most of these people have a bit of time shopping before lunch? Gentlemen, if you will decide your fabrics, you will be excused. Within 20 minutes, Sarah had them organized and head out the door. Jack was grateful for the reduction in people. As bitter as was outside, it had begun to boil in. Cora had clung to Lucas's arm, keeping him with her. Angela was desperate to keep Noah happy and allowed him to pick the fabrics. The light blue was laced with silver thread. They would be matching, in truth. Angela had the figure that would... Oh, yeah, that works. A figure that was more suited to the tight-fitting dress. But her mother had other ideas and insisted she wear a full skirt with petticoats. They would still match in fabric, and quickly left with the promise of purchasing Noah a few things before lunch. Jack saw the light in the man's eye, and the five of them set off in their own car. Cora, this is beautiful. Have you studied design before? Asked Aunt Marie. No, but I've always wanted this dress, my wedding dress. The small, neat man patted the back of her hand. Then you shall have it, my dear. I know you must have an idea of the fabric. Have you seen it in the store? No, I haven't. Come with me. Sarah nodded at her, reassuring the girl. Jack leaned into Sarah's ear. Do you think they can get all this done in 3 weeks? Even if I'm up all night in the back of the shop? Yes. Jack's eyes flashed with worry. They have friends. They are not the only tailors in the world, and I wonder if Cora would enjoy some time down here with them. You did? Question mark. I enjoyed the people, not the work. She smiled up at him. Did you say you worked here? Asked, what was the woman's... Oh, did I not write down her mom's name? That's what I did wrong. See, this is why one does this. too far. That's it, Veronica. That's Cora's mom. Well, Cora and the Pink Terror. Cora McLean. Veronica. Oh, I already have it in there. Okay. I gotta go back down here. Did you say you worked here? Asked Veronica. Yes, and I still do occasionally. They help raise me. They're very good people. I understand your parents have passed. You would be right, but I think most... Oh, passed. My goodness, Tina. None of the words in that sentence were right. And I'd saying them, but they were not right. Yes, and I still do occasionally. They help raise me. They're very good people. I understand your parents have passed. You would be right, but I think of them as my godparents or grandparents. Their son is at school right now. I hope he'll take over the business. At least he has an interest in it. He's a good sort, too. Do they make all of your clothes? Sarah looked down at the paisley skirt they had modified. No, these would be things Jack picked out. However, they did modify the skirt. She squatted quickly. The hidden pleats of the matching satin showed the outline of her thighs. Matching blue, B-L-U-E, blue satin, showed the outline of her thighs. Nice trick, right? She's always complaining about my taste. I will admit the skirt has been improved. She had to hike it up around her thighs to get up a step. So they're that sort of tailor, as well. Yes, anything you're interested in, not just what's in the books. That is a rare thing these days. It is. You know, I hadn't thought of this. We should recruit in some of the high schools. If someone has a passion for this field, it is good for them to get their feet covered in thread. It's not something for the faint of heart. I know what to do, and I'm proficient, but I can tell you I do not want to do it for a living. And what is it that you want to do for a living? Make money, of course. Sarah hugged Jack's arm and smiled up into his face. She does have a knack for that. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. Now that Sarah's main opponent had been occupied, Jack asked Larry to manage his guest list, inviting their friends and business associates, so he and Sarah could focus on a more critical mission. The next few weeks went by in a blur. Jason did not return, but there were more Servino cousins who appeared, as well as assorted relatives collecting for the wedding. Leonard Marksman had taken on the duty of host and entertainment master. Period. It was his hotel and granddaughter. Two unrelated girls had appeared, and each had a worse temper than Amelia, making her appear the docile one. But still, there were no biters among the single gentlemen for Amelia. There was a rather dirty old uncle who was in constant pursuit of her. However, there was a rather dirty old uncle who was in constant pursuit, and I'm going to put dirty as a capital because that's like his title. His name, dirty old uncle, who was in constant pursuit of her. He's a widower. Maybe they would make a good pair. He likes her temperament. Jack, you have to be the one to talk with him and find out his intentions. You don't think she would accept the old man? I don't know what his resources are, and I don't know what her desires are. An old, fat, wrinkly wallet may be what she's after. Well, when you put it that way, I want to puke. Jack snuggled his nose into her hair, watching it as even more people piled into their converted dining room. Jack was so thankful Sarah had insisted on the hotel. Marksman opened a third floor for his guests once his granddaughter Cora was part of the show. Jack was hoping they would be able to keep the peace for another week. Once everything was legally binding, they could fly away from the pit they had dug for themselves and all their invited vipers. Larry compiled the list and sent out invitations to a Thursday banquet to practice for the big day. But once word got out, people stopped by all week to see the spectacle, and they often wrangled themselves into daily outings. At the end of these days, Jack was exhausted, but no more than Sarah. Coming home after 10 again, she assured him all the dresses and suits would be ready for the big day. She crawled on top of the covers and fell asleep immediately. He didn't have the heart to wake her, so rocked her, pulling her up into his arms. She was so trusting and soft. He kissed the top of her head before beginning to unbutton her blouse. She should at least be comfortable. He had never seen so much of her exposed, and it certainly was not going unnoticed by his body. He pulled her sleeping form to his chest. She was pressed against his shirt and trying to pull her blouse off her arms, but it caught around her wrist, and he struggled, realizing too late. There were 3 buttons that impeded the process. Too late, there were 3 buttons that impeded the process. Realizing too late. Yeah, I'm going to leave it like that, even though it's not correct. But caught around her wrist, and he struggled, realizing, and he struggled. Oh, I'm going to fix this. She was pressed against his shirt and she was pressed against his shirt, and he was trying to pull her blouse off her arms, but it caught around her wrists. Period. He struggled, realizing too late. That does not need to be there. There were 3 buttons that impeded the process. So focused on trying to unbutton her cuffs, he lost track of her head and she fell, bouncing on the bed, but she did not seem to wake. He pushed back the sleeves, got the cuffs undone, and managed to get the blouse. Needs to be a comma here. And managed. What's going on here? I put it in the wrong place. Silly Tina. He pushed back the sleeves, got the cuffs undone, and managed to get the blouse off, throwing it to the ground. Throwing it to the ground. She really was lovely. He wanted to feel more of her, and took off his jacket and started to unbutton his shirt. She was still asleep. He stopped himself for a moment. What was he doing? He was being naughty. He threw his tie down with her blouse. He would keep his trousers on. She had seen his bare chest, and he hoped it would not frighten her. She had seen his bare chest, and he hoped it would not frighten her. It had amused her as she drew on him during the game, using the hair on his upper chest as the start of a ridiculous drawing of a monkey and a lion. He again scooped her up, pressing her nearly naked chest to his hairy one, and it felt so good. He cradled her head against his neck and sat cross-legged, adjusting her around him. He stroked her back for a few moments, stopping as his fingers caught on the strap of her bra. He still needed to be something of a gentleman, so he stroked her hair. He tried to undo the intricate braids Grandma Till had put in this morning. His fingers caught and pulled her hair. She made a small noise, but did not seem to wake. He finally got the last pins out and untangled the braids, shaking his fingers along her scalp, combing through her locks. He was being a dirty old man. He lifted her and pulled her left knee and leg around his waist. Then he pulled the other one, pressing her to him, cradling her head. Her lips were soft and her breath was warm against his neck. He stroked her back and tentatively went below her belt line, pressing her backside. He stopped to see if she reacted. He was being horrible, a dirty old man, a very, very dirty old man. He rubbed his cheek across the top of her head and continued to stroke her back, being more daring and ending his caress with a small squeeze of a cheek. He wanted to reorganize himself and tried to stand with her in his arms, only to catch his feet and fall back down. She still had not reacted. He was beginning to get worried that he had hurt her, and she still had not reacted. He was beginning to get worried that he'd hurt her as she was beginning to tremble. Then he realized she was laughing, keeping her face firmly buried in his flesh. Brat? Hooligan? Did I hurt you? She started laughing again. No, the shirt is awfully difficult. Let me take it off. Oh, the skirt is awfully difficult. Let me take it off. My pants stay on, but your belt comes off. It's digging into my stomach. That was something he'd never thought of. She was quickly disrobing before him. She had to get up on her knees in order to free her skirt from her body. But to loose the knee-high, she leaned back on her elbows and put one leg straight up and towards her face, pulling and tossing the offending fabric. She repeated it on the other side. Jack hadn't taken his eyes off the swirling pattern of her panties. He'd never actually, well in his adult life, been this close to a woman he wanted to touch and find out what actually lay beneath the fabric. Oh, beneath that little piece of silky fabric. Jack, you're being very naughty. The second little scrap of fabric ended up on the floor. She returned to her knees, which placed her face just slightly above his. She pulled his face down to her chest. He opened his mouth slightly to taste. She was sweet and salty. He was desperate for more. She kissed the top of his head and held him to her. Then he felt the pain at the roots of his hair. She pulled his head away. I can't have you do more, she breathed heavily. I don't think I can handle it. Am I hurting you? No. Well, she rubbed his cheek with one of her hands. That is a little rough, but it's kind of nice. I just can't handle it anymore. I want you to do more, and I'm trying to be a good girl, but I don't know how good I am being in front of you like this. You're being a good girl. I'm the bad one. She kissed his forehead. We're both bad. She kissed his nose. We're both being very, very bad. She kissed his mouth. He could not stop trying to support. He could not stop. Trying to support her neck as he pressed against her, she tipped backward. And this needs to be backward, her. Knees came up and her legs wrapped around his waist as his weight settled on top of her and between her thighs. She felt so good and tasted exquisite. Though he had the hunger, he did not press hard, trying to enjoy every stroke. Jack could not take it any more as his fingers laced in her hair. She pressed up against him, and he lost his mind, as he lost himself in the kiss. He was beginning to shiver at the touch of her hand on his back, and he realized something else was going on. His mind blanked as he surrendered to the pleasure. "Sarah, I have to stop. I can't take this." She held on to him, but did not force his mouth to hers anymore. "If all goes well, we should be able to sign the papers Tuesday." That's all that is. I'm going to get rid of these. Is all that is keeping me sane. She let out a deep breath and relaxed her grip on him. She moved her hands to his chest and pushed him off her. "I'm taking a shower first." Doodly-doo. Jack didn't know who to call. He didn't have close female friends. Frankly, had no female friends. He certainly could not ask his stepmother about this. She had never been happy. Talking with his grandmother might also help. Talking with his grandmother might also help relieve some of the tension in his body. "Sorry for calling so late." "No, I'm fine. Sarah's fine. I don't know who else to talk to." "I don't know who else to talk to ask." "All right, I'll say it. Give me a minute." "You loved Grandpa and he loved you back. I remember there was a lot of tenderness. It kind of grossed me out when I was a kid." "Really, I didn't know. I didn't know that was possible." "Fine, I'll read the books. My question is this. Do women have urges like men? Does a cold shower work for the same?" "Yes. Tuesday. No, I'm not regretting it. All right, I'll give him a call. I appreciate your offering to talk with her. It's not like she can ask her mother." "Yes, that's why I'm calling you tonight, at this hour. I promise. Good night." Well, the conversation helped, and the thought of talking to the old doctor made him shrivel a bit more. He could hear Sarah inside the shower, and it ended the deflation. He shouldn't leave her alone, but needed to get out some of his energy, so he pulled on a t-shirt and in his dress pants and socks. In his dress pants and so. I know they don't like it, but it's a flow, it's poetry. And so in his dress pants and socks, he started running up and down the corridor on the second pass. He paused by a door. He had heard raised voices and moved in closer to listen. It was definitely a male voice, but he had a hard time recognizing it. The other voice was low. It was too low for him to tell if it was male or female, but after a few words he assumed it was a woman. "This won't affect us. All she cares about is my flashy things." Oh, it's flashy things. and being on my arm and showing me off. You know I love you. Only you. Don't cry. You know I have to marry someone. She's perfect. She's too vain to care. She's perfect. She's too vain to care. As long as I keep her in jewels and fancy parties, she'll be happy. She hasn't tried to touch me. I promise. I'm yours to the end of time. The voice calmed and quieted enough that Jack could make out, could not make out any further words, but then there was a definite noise, and he made his way on his toes back. Noise of another activity. But then there was a definite noise of another activity, and he made his way on his toes back towards his room. He texted headquarters and asked who's in room 4219. The answer confused him. Charlie Armstrong, illegitimate son of Daniel Marchetti. Sarah was right. He was a wild card. They still had little record of him hanging out with Alan, Noah, and Adam, but he definitely came with them from overseas as their +1. Jack shook his head. That's why I'm not supposed to listen at doors. Sarah had changed into her fuzzy pajamas, which did nothing to disguise her form or detract from his desire for her. She quickly hid under the blankets, her fuzzy pajamas, which disguised her form, but did not detract from his desire for her. There, that works. She quickly hid under the blankets. You are sweaty. What have you been doing? I went for a run in the hallway. Her brows knit together, and she buried her face under the blanket. Yes, it's your fault. I'm going to take a shower now. Tuesday, my sweet. Oh. This is all him and her, all conversation. Yes, it's your fault. I'm going to take a shower now. Tuesday, my sweet. That reminds me. My Grandma Till will, Grandma Till would like to have tea with you tomorrow. When you're free. A muffled okay came from under the blankets. There was no water cold enough to take care of his problem. Only Tuesday night would. Doodly-doot, doodly-doot. Jack stopped suddenly at the sight of Billy braiding Sarah's hair with Grandma Till directing. The old woman was far too nice to the young man. Suddenly the collar of his jacket felt too tight. Billy was not wearing a jacket, but his pants were the same cream color as Jack's. Best man? Maid of honor. I prefer butler of honor. Both of them started laughing, and even his grandmother smiled. Lily's been too busy and hasn't even finished her hair. You have plenty of time to get dressed. Why is your shirt wrinkled? Grandma Till fussed. Ouch. He looked down at himself and tugged at her shirt. I'll be buttoning up the jacket. It is not the ceremony, it's the wedding photos. It's wedding. It is not the ceremony, it is wedding photos. They will represent you for a lifetime. Go see Gomez, he's fixing people. Jack found Gomez with a small fit man and Aunt Marie doing last-minute alterations. I get why they want that. Jack found Gomez with a small fit man and Aunt Marie doing last-minute alterations and fixes. It was only then that he caught sight of Bernard. Bernard and his brother being fussed over by their mother. She was like a small mouse running over a lion, but he looked good in his matching suit to Jack. You know what? I'm going to undo Bernard, because Bernard's brother's not in the ceremony, he's a guest. It was only then that he caught sight of Bernard being fussed over by his mother. She was like a small mouse running over a lion, but he looked good in a matching suit to Jack's. My grandma Till said my shirt's wrinkled. It is. Come over here to where Gomez is. He's a magician with the steamer. Well, take it off. You don't need to burn before your big day. Gomez was in slacks of the same matching cream as his, but he was not wearing a jacket yet. And his shirt was certainly not wrinkled. There were a few faces he did not recognize, but they were busy and with ribbon and thread and a very anxious Angela in a blue-tinted confection. He had to admit it did match her skin well. Angela stared at Jack, not with daggers, but with something else in her eyes as he waited in his undershirt. Gomez and another little helper expertly smoothed the silk. He felt relieved when he reclothed himself and was able to escape. Now Billy was blowing on her face, alternately dusting it with a large brush. Jack felt his teeth grind, but Sarah smiled at him, and his heart felt better. Good you found Gomez. Sarah's beautiful. They had decided she could have her scars healed by the wedding, and certainly would not be taking photos with the large bandages on her body. Jack caught sight of someone in a black suit, which matched none of the parties, and realized it was Jason, his arms folded across his chest and a half-empty bottle in front of him, sitting in the far corner. He didn't like how Sarah watched... Oh, he did not. He didn't like how Jason watched Sarah, but he never did. They were ushered and positioned. When they did, he and Sarah's group photo, he realized Jack, not he again, Jack. When they did he and Sarah's group photo, Jack realized how many men were surrounded when they took his and Sarah's group photo. Jack realized how many men were surrounding him, dressed in identical cream-colored quipos. He had a strange fullness in his chest when it struck him that this was real and not just some act they were putting on. These were his friends, and she was his bride, and would be his wife for life, and the mother of his children. The last thought made him gulp at the pressure in his chest. Mr. Marksman's staff had done an excellent job at organizing and decorating the hall for the photo shoot. But he was surprised when it all started coming down as soon as they were done. It never occurred to him that other weddings would be occurring in between, and an orange rose-themed hall was beginning to be set up as the photographers packed their gear. Most of his wedding party had returned upstairs, and that's when he realized Jason was still missing. Realized Jason was missing as well. That's when he realized Jason was missing as well. On his way upstairs, he noticed Noah and his friends disappearing into Charlie's room, all clad in their cream-colored matching suits, but for the one black tuxedo. Jack had only seen the back of him, but none of the party had been in black but for Jason. He shook his head and locked the door behind him. Sarah leapt. I'm going to give it that. leapt into action, stripping him and hanging his clothes. That's the word. Leapt into action, stripping him and hanging his clothes neatly in the closet. We're not going to touch these until the wedding. She quickly had him in his boxers and t-shirt. Do I get to keep the socks on? No. She smacked his knee to get him to lift his foot. This session... Oh, the P-H-O-T-O. The photo session ran long, so everyone's just starting to eat downstairs. And yes, I'm starving. So get dressed. Doodly doot. Sarah was taken away by Grandma Till with a large plate of food, and he felt lost without her at his elbow. Sarah... Strange how he never knew he needed that. Oh, wait, rewind. Sarah was taken away by Grandma Till with a large... By Grandma Till and... a large plate of food. He felt lost without her at his elbow. Strange how he never knew he needed the appendage. Jacob still had his full cream suit on and a full plate. You get that dirty, she'll kill you. I assume you mean Lily. I'll just buy a new one, not before Saturday. Strip, I'll hold your plate. And that was Jacob. Okay. I have nowhere to go. Jack pressed his card key into Jacob's hand. Leave your suit in the closet, and you can use some of my clothing. Jacob returned in a pair of sweatpants, still in his shiny black dress shoes, but his face looked green. Did you eat something you shouldn't have? Jacob shook his head no, and took the plate from Jack's hand. Are you sure you should eat? You look awful. Quite. Not quiet. Quite. Q-I-T. Okay, let me look at this word. No, Q-I-T. Okay, let me make sure I'm not misspelling like an idiot. No, I spelled it right. I picked the right word. Computer, you're wrong. Quite. I'm fine. I didn't see anything. No periods. Because his, like, staccato. Is Lily okay? No idea. I didn't see her. Jack texted his grandmother and got a quick response, having tea. There was no point in looking for her. He did not want to interrupt that conversation. Are you really going through with this without sampling the goods? Remember, you're the one who's broken, not me. Actually, you know what, Jacob? Maybe I am broken. I've always been repulsed by everyone. Lily is the first woman I've not. The first woman who makes me insanely hungry. Jacob's eyebrows went up to his hairline. Maybe that's the problem. Wouldn't it be weird if I finally slept with someone and I didn't find them repulsive? Totally weird. Maybe the problem is women you choose. Maybe the problem is the women you choose. No, I've had a virgin or two. Don't look at me like that. They didn't want to be burdened anymore, and knew I would not burden them with any long-term expectations. They had heard things. You do get regular checkups, don't you? Of course. And I'm cautious. A heavy hand landed on Jacob's shoulder, startling him. You can only lick them water fountains so many times before you get unlucky. Thank you, Uncle Walter. Do you speak from experience? The tall, handsome old man glared down at Jacob. Hello, Father. I hadn't realized you'd made it. Just got in. I'm afraid I missed the photo shoot. Not a problem. Are you staying in the hotel? Of course. Give me time to catch give me time to catch up. Now, which one of these women is your bride? You've missed her. She's speaking with my grandmother. Oh. A last-minute warning to leave you and a nice fat check pressed into her hand. Probably. Uncle Walter, if you've not heard, this is a love match, not an arrangement. Much like you and Sue over there. The handsome old man's face twisted. Yes, well, make sure you introduce me. I wouldn't want to mistake my daughter-in-law. And I probably should make sure Sue, because I have Walter, I know. With Sue. Oh, S. Wait, how do I spell her name? S-U-E. The handsome old man's face twisted. Yes, well, make sure you introduce me. I wouldn't want to mistake my daughter-in-law. Don't worry, she knows what you look like. She won't accidentally become my new stepmother. The handsome old man's nostrils flared. Delightful talking to you as always. I'll see who else I can scare up. Speaking of frightening things, is your stepmother here? No, she will not be able to make it to my wedding. It was a bit last minute. The old handsome man's face twisted again into a smirk. Any reason for the haste? Yes, Jack can't keep his hands off her. He's also worried someone else will snatch her away. She's quite popular, brilliant and beautiful. I can show you a photo. Jack scowled at Jacob. She might have been mine if I'd met her first. See? She's that good. The handsome old man had snatched the phone from Jacob and then seemed confused. I can't see her face. She's a nice figure. Swipe left. You've got to be kidding me. No, Uncle Walter. She's truly the most beautiful woman that I think I've ever seen. He threw the phone into Jacob's lap. You're full of crap. Don't now point her out. She was in a car accident, Father, but she's better now. Damaged goods. Anyways, Dad. I believe there are some cousins over there, Myrtle and Big Jack. I need to make sure I have these. Copy. Oh, I do. Okay. They haven't seen you in ages. Yes, well, I should mingle. Jacob lowered his voice, his eyes trained on the back of Walter. He is as pleasant as always. Did you really mean to send him an invitation? I didn't. Text Grandma Till and let her know her son's here. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. Jack watched Sarah play with some of the youngest members of the wedding party. There was lots of squealing and laughter. You really like her. Alan, you surprise me. Yes, I really like her. She's going to make an excellent mother. She gets along with small people. My mother never did. Neither did my stepmother, offered Jack. She can't get a plane out, so she will not be able to participate personally in the wedding. She's upset, but Marksman arranged a live feed, so she'll at least be able to watch it. Oh, and she liked me better once I could drive. Mine never warmed up to me. Jack realized he'd lost track of Sarah. Do you see her? As little as possible. I mean Sarah, Lily. Do you see her? Both men stood and scanned the room. The children are still there. Can you make a circuit of the room? I'm going to make a call. Sarah was not answering her phone. Jack's heart was starting to compress again. He also called headquarters. They did not have her on camera leaving the room. It happened again. Would this really be the rest of his life? In fear for her safety? The intense pain in his chest when she wasn't within eyesight? He needed to see a psychologist to make sure this was normal. He should do it before the wedding, because the moment he saw her walking with her hand around Alan's arm, a warmth rushed over him, and his heart unknotted. But at the same time, heat rose in an anger at seeing her touching another man. He needed help. Sarah wiggled in front of him and hugged him around the waist. She spoke in quiet tones, and Jack had to bend his head to understand her. I just had the most disturbing conversation with a tall, handsome older gentleman who looks an awful lot like you. Did he tell you he was my father? No, but I guessed. He's much older than the photo you showed me. He offered to marry me and had a ring in his pocket. Is that normal? It is for him. He dated a girl my age who had been claiming to be my girlfriend. He was very proud of himself. So you're the opposite of your father. I hope to be a different species. Sarah laughed and tried to kiss him, but could only awkwardly manage the top of his shoulder. Are you trying to kiss me? Yes. Do you have a problem with that? I do. I need to calm down. Her eyebrows knitted in confusion. He flashed his eyes downwards, and she proceeded to turn red. Walk me to dinner. You, too, Alan. She hooked her arm in both men's. Oh. This needs to be her talking. Walk me to dinner. You too, Alan. She hooked her arms in both men's elbows, dragged them towards the door. That's good. Tonight, there were too many guests to accommodate the dining space upstairs, so Leonard Marksman had opened one of the smaller banquet halls attached. I'm going to get rid of the had, yeah, it can't go away. So Leonard Marksman opened one of the smaller banquet halls attached to the restaurant. Sarah made sure to skewer herself between the two men. Though she knew most of the staff, she did not want another run-in with many of the relatives, any of the relatives, and hoped for a peaceful meal. Before there are too many more ears around, Alan, can I ask you something about Noah? Asked Sarah. Sarah cried. Sarah whispered. There, that works. If I'd spelled whispered right. Yep. Of course. I reserve the right not to incriminate myself. I've been friends with Noah since elementary school, so I know all his dark secrets, and witnessed most of them. Do you think he will be a good husband for Angela? She will never have to worry about him bringing home a mistress or illegitimate offspring. So he is the faithful sort. She never has to worry about being challenged for position of the mistress of the house. It will be all hers. And any of her offspring. Good, I'm glad to hear that. Jack assures me that she really does like to be out and be seen in her finery. So they're well matched in that way as well. He values appearance. He's almost as vain as I am. Alan, you don't seem that bad. I'm just terrible. You haven't seen my closet back home. I have way too many shoes. Do you have odd-shaped feet? No, I just can't pass up a lovely pair of Italian leathers. I like Italian leather. Well, you two will get along then. She can't pass up a handbag. I'm really glad they are well matched. Tomorrow night is the dress rehearsal. And we only have 3 more days until we're all married. I pray that everyone can keep their heads. What's the pink and terror? The pink terror. What's the pink terror up to? Asked Jack. Who's the pink terror? Amelia over there with her sister Cora and Lucas. I hope they really are a good match. And we're not just forcing this. We're not. I'm gonna fix that. We're not just forced into this. Alan leaned in closer as more people were beginning to filter into the room. closer as more people began to filter the room. I have to go. I have it on good authority that Cora is the one who is the pursuer. Oh, I did miss that. In that relationship. Is Lucas happy? Look at his face. He's not displeased. Good. You should keep Amelia away from them. Let them have a bit of peace. What's wrong with Amelia? I mean, she has a bit of a mouth, but... Sarah's twice smacked Amelia so hard she's ended up on the ground. Jack stroked Sarah's hand. You're not that violent. She earned the beatings, Sarah assured him. I'm sure she did. I'm just surprised. I'm surprised she'd been as calm as she has. Well, if you notice her body language right now, she's got her fist on her hips and her nasty snarl on her face as she's talking to her future brother-in-law. Tell me, do you have a video of Lily fighting? Asked Alan. I do, but I think you're going to get a live show before too long. No, let them solve it themselves. I don't want to ruin my makeup. Lily winked at Jack. Brent just arrived, and he has lots of your friends with him. Brent? I need to make sure I got the right name. I think it's not. I think it's Larry, but I could be wrong. Oh no, it is Brent. That's why. Brent just arrived, and he has lots of your friends with him, Jack. We should greet them. We should go greet them. No. He put his hand on top of hers, resting on the table. Banquet rules. We stay and let others approach us. Plus, we have the best seat in the house for the show that's about to start. There's a group of young women and two men who are approaching Cora and her betrothed. Amelia's stance had immediately changed. She's putting on the attitude that I have witnessed twice. Neither time ended well for her. Should we intervene? Okay. Sarah put her hand on Alan's shoulder. No, but I will text Cora and ask her to talk to me about makeup right now. From a distance, it was obvious Cora had received the message and was starting as she was staring directly into Sarah's eyes across the room. ACRO across the room. She looked back and forth between Sarah and her sister and apparently made a decision, for she pulled Lucas's arm, and they were on their way over to the table to join them. Amelia was too caught up in her conversation to follow. I suppose if we are getting married on the same day... Come on. You're sort of a sister-in-law. Cora straightened her skirts and held Lucas's arm on the table. Yes, and that would make Lucas your brother-in-law. Yes, and as such, I'm looking out for you. I don't want anything to interfere with the wedding ceremony in 3 days' time. I've gone over... Is that... I know. It's poetry. I've gone over everything with Grandpa 20 times at least. You already have all the clothes and all the food. Oh, all the clothes. You already have all the clothes, and all the food has been ordered for the reception. Grandpa said he might open another floor. Your grandfather has done an amazing job on this event. Sarah slid her eyes to where Amelia was beginning to gesture with her arms. I just don't want you to have any trouble. Cora frowned. Oh, followed Sarah's gaze, and her face blanched. I like the makeup you had for the photo shoot. My best friend Billy did mine. What do you think of it? That stinky blonde is not your brother. Oh, that skinny blonde is not your brother. No, well, not blood. He's often better. It's Oft it is. I'm going to get rid of this. No, well, not by. Not, that's what's missing. Not by blood. I kept saying it, but it's not there. That skinny blonde is not your brother. No, well, not by blood. It is often better to choose one's family. Sarah was quiet and let that sink in. He decided I should call him my butler of honor. He didn't like maid. I do have someone coming who is as good, is as good. I could have put the as, okay. I do have someone coming who's as good as my brother. We were raised together. And before you ask, no, you've not seen him yet. He's in school and across the country. He will have just finished his exams and get to the airplane to make it in time for the wedding. I met your friend Sally. My grandfather put her in charge of arranging meals once he learned you were friends. Sally's my elder sister, and I do appreciate the promotion for her, but she deserved it. Deserved Edie. I thought she was just your friend, a chosen sister. Cora stared across the room. Sally is a very nice woman. I can understand why you chose to have her as a sister. Sarah felt it was the right moment to ask. I thought Amelia had gotten along very well with Jeremiah. Am I wrong? Sarah squeezed Alan's hand to stop him from speaking. She already knew the opposite was true. Oh no, she can't stand Jeremiah. He's the one that exposed all her, well, internet infamy. Then who does she like? Sarah followed up. Noah. Sarah couldn't feel Alan. Noah. Sarah could feel Alan tensing under her hand. But Noah and Angela are inseparable. I don't think Noah would make a good match. I don't think Noah would make a good match. I don't think Noah would make her a good match. Completely different color palettes. Color palettes, what does that mean? My sister dresses well, but she prefers hot pink. I mean, everything is hot pink. The other person she really likes. Cora glanced around the room and leaned in as if she were sharing a state secret. Amelia really likes Jacob, Jack's cousin. So does every other woman. I think she is quite serious. Should I warn Jacob? Asked Jack. Sarah patted Jack's hand. No, I'll talk with him. He may be unaware of his admirer. Do you think they'd make a good team? You mean tag team, like wrestling? No, I mean good match. Jacob's my cousin and a very good friend, so I should not speak ill of him, but I don't think he is a good match for anyone, male or female. Is that why he's never settled down? No, he prefers females, but in his words, he's broken. I don't think he could make anyone happy, at least of all himself. Maybe he just needs a project. There was a scream and a sharp sound of flesh being smacked. Sarah ground Cora with her eyes, and the girl settled back into her seat, looking down at her hands in her lap. Amelia has other support. She didn't even realize you'd left her side, and she's not looking for you. I think this could all be this, because Sarah's grounding her. That's good. Lucas hugged Cora around the shoulders. Your things have already been moved to my house. After the reception, we will be flying away for a whole month. And if I do my job right, you won't be able to leave the house for another 10 months. Cora's face turned red, and she buried her face into Lucas's side. And I promise no one will bother you in the garden. Alan snorted. It looks like little Cora chose well. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. Jack was preoccupied with watching his father at the rehearsal dinner. Jack's dad had only made a slight spectacle of himself during the practice vows, claiming he had an objection. His mother, Grandma Till, hit him with a cane, which ended his performance. Apparently, his father used up all the crazy in the room, because everyone else was fairly well behaved. What did you say, Jacob? So he stayed glued to a mill. What did you say to Jacob? What did you say to Jacob? ? He has stayed glued to Amelia's side. $1. No. Alan's mouth dropped open. It was a bet among gentlemen. So he's doing your bidding for honor. That and a case of rum. Sarah smacked Jack on the knee. Wait, look. 3 tables from the end and 2 in. That woman with Jason. Isn't that the frightened little man's girlfriend? The one that was being... What was his name? You know, the one that was being harassed by the girl. The girl that I smacked down in the office. Jack did a poor job of subtly looking around the room. It is her. Jack started scanning the room. This banquet hall was 4 times the size of their little room where they had family dinners. At least half the wedding guests were in attendance tonight. Lucas followed his gaze. That's Jason's... Oh, I wonder... Yeah, that's fine. Lucas followed his gaze. Yeah, that's Jason's girlfriend. They've been together forever. Does she have a sister who looks just like her and is really into cats? No idea. I'm going to make a phone call, excuse me. Alan, Adam, would you please watch Lily for me? I'm not a child. Jack kissed the top of her head. You're my baby, and I need your uncles to watch out for you. Gross. You're going to make me throw up. I will make sure if she gets... But, here, capital but. But I will make sure if she get... Oh. I will make sure she gets the right entree and uses her silverware properly. Alan snorted. Jack nodded at Johnson, and the giant moved to the wall directly behind Sarah. Why is Jack so agitated? Asked Cora. I think he is worried I'll run away. You wouldn't do that, would you, Lily? Asked Cora. Not from Jack. Her smile was wide, but it did not reach her eyes as she watched the far table. Cora cleared her throat, drawing Sarah's attention back. My sister's been very happy. I hope this bet isn't something. Sarah smiled genuinely at Cora. I spoke with Jacob. He has never dated anyone for more than 24 hours. I'm quite serious. So this is merely a chance for him with a girl who really likes him. Jack assures me you can get the man to do anything for a bet. And Cora, I'm going to be honest with you. If we can get through the reception dinner Saturday night without any smackdowns, I will be surprised. Amelia's young and hot-headed. And spoiled rotten. I know, I live with her. I just don't want to see her hurt. She might get her heart broken, but that's bound to happen when looking for someone to love. Jacob's not an easy man, and he's notorious for it. She's already at hour 36, and Sarah's face flushed. What is it? Asked Cora. I made Jacob promise me he would not bed your sister. Are you serious? My sister's a complete slut. She carries protective equipment with her in her purse at all times. I'm sorry, what? Do you know how upset she's going to be if he rejects her? Lucas cleared his throat. She's pretty well known, that's why. Cora had an ugly look on her face. That's why my husband is not allowed anywhere near her. I'm already your husband. Yes, my sovereign territory. All the men at the table made rude noises and then started to laugh. Now she's going to see him as a challenge. If you know she's like that, why don't you worry about her hurting the guy? Cora made eye contact with each man around the table. Do you feel hurt after one night stand that leaves you, or do you appreciate it? The two of them are well matched, then, according to what Jax told me. Sarah laughed. What are the rules? Just that he has to remain by her side, keep her engaged, and he couldn't sleep with her. Oh, and if she fights with anyone before the end of the banquet Saturday night, he loses the bet. He can use any means to keep her out of trouble, except the one thing she really likes to do. Cora started laughing, but tried to cover it. Doodly-doot, doodly-doot. Jack felt the same sense of relief at seeing Sarah safely laughing at the table as he had the morning she had appeared at Ravenwood House, all covered in blood. Ackerman's men had determined there were actors at dinner that had not been on the guest list, nor had been noticed. Jack was waiting for the current location of the nervous young man from accounting. He had been invited, but so had his girlfriend. The one that was now cuddled up on Jason's arm. He leaned into Johnson's ear and appraised him of the situation, reaffirming Johnson would be on Sarah's backside every moment until she was safely squirreled away in his bed tonight. Jack slid back into his chair and hugged Sarah for a moment before letting her go so she could breathe. I missed you, and you're going to make me puke, Ellen snorted. I'm not the only one who's inseparable from their significant other. I've noticed Noah is very attentive. Angela and he are well matched. I thought Angela didn't like your brother Jason. Why has she been at his table all evening? I've seen them talking alone more than once. They have a history, and I've noticed they have all been spending a lot of time together, even at Grandpa's. Does he have his own place? No, I'm getting married, so I'm moving out. That's how it works. He is often at a friend's house. Or just out. Jason and I stopped being friends when he went to high school. I thought you were closer than that. Sunday dinner is a mandatory event, but we run with different people. I only ever see him at restaurants and occasionally a game. But the family has a box, so. Lucas said that the woman on Jason's arm is a long-term girlfriend. Really? What does long-term mean? I've seen her around him for years, answered Lucas. And Angela? Lucas nodded. Jack felt very sick in the pit of his stomach. I need to make another call, Alan. The two men nodded at each other. Johnson slid into the chair Jack had evacuated. Sarah smiled into his face. He's going to be a while, isn't he? Johnson just nodded. Noah said he went to school with you, too. Have you been working for Jack all this time? Asked Alan. Yes. What do you like? Do you like what you do? Yes. Do you have someone you can pull up on stage to make it a fourth? Alan continued to probe. No, they're taken. Oh, now we're getting somewhere interesting. How long have you liked this person? Since I met them. Cora squealed. Love at first sight. But there's something else. But there's someone else. That's tragic. If she's happy, it's okay. And he's a good man. Oh, you're a tragic hero. Does she even know? Oh, does she even have a clue? Oh. There's a button there that does not need to be. Oh, you're a tragic hero. Does she even have a clue you like her? Question mark. If he messes up, she will. Period. The table began making chiding noises. Well. She is very lucky to have you as a backup. What's it called? A spare tire, snorted Alan. A spare tire is defined as someone knowingly keeping around someone who's in love with them as a backup. By definition, he's not a spare tire because she has no clue he likes her. Thanks for the analysis, Dr. Webster. What exactly do you do for Jack? Protect. And that means, Sarah finally cut in, it means Johnson's my shadow, my muscle, driver, intelligence officer, and sous chef. So you spend more time with her than Jack? No. Sarah again answered, I sleep with Jack. The table erupted in hoots, and for the first time, Johnson openly stared at Sarah and then looked away. So we know you like this girl, but would you consider being matched up with another girl? I'll wait. All eyes focused on Johnson, but his eyes were on Sarah. That is commendable, but not... That's commendable, but nuts. That's commendable. I'm going to put this. Nuts, but commendable. Don't be mean. I think it's sweet. And don't look at me like that, Lucas. I just didn't have to wait as long for you. You mean you've been waiting? I'm not like my sister. I only have one bag in my closet. She called you a bag, Adam snorted. I'm happy to be her only bag. He raised both his eyebrows and looked disgusted at the men. Good, you do... Good. You do have true love. Just don't make the rest of us sick. I'm gonna get rid of the good. You do have true love. Just don't make the rest of us sick. You do suffer from... This is it. You do SUFFER from... You do suffer from true love. Just don't make the rest of us sick. Jack had been gone for quite a while, and when dinner was nearly over... There was a commotion in the back corner where Jack's father had sat. Johnson stood scanning the room and then settled back in his chair, merely shaking his head at Sarah. What did you see? An old man. Details, Johnson. A foolish old man. Jack appeared behind Johnson, but put his hand on his large man's shoulder to keep him in place. Take her out if it gets too serious. The giant simply nodded his head. Jack strode over to the far corner where the commotion had escalated. Do you have any idea what's... Jack strode towards... T-O-W-A-R, towards... Far corner where the commotion had escalated. Do Do you have any idea what that's about? Yes, answered Johnson. You are infuriating. Yes, a smile broke across the giant's face. Then his face went flat. He stood and pulled Sarah from her chair, threw her over his shoulder, and ran from the room. Alan looked at his remaining dinner companions and casually asked, "Do you think we should follow them?" Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. Jack had not made it across the room towards the raised voices before a swarm of uniformed officers had surrounded and cuffed Jason, his date, and a small waiter. Jack's arm was clamped, and he turned to see the pale face of Servino Sr. "Jack, why is this happening? Why is my grandson being taken away?" "It's his date." "You mean Lucy?" asked Servino Sr. "I met her under the name Lindsay, and she had a different boyfriend," Jack offered. "I hope Jason's not involved in this." Jack noticed the old man's face was still far too pale. "Do you want to go with your grandson, or do you want to come with me and look at the evidence that we've turned over to the police?" "You." The old man's feet seemed to drag, and Jack found he had to support him. Support him as he led the way back towards the table Sarah had been taken from. "Alan, I'm going to leave the party early. I wonder if you could make my excuse and look after all the guests." "Grandpa, what's wrong?" asked Lucas. "We're going to retire upstairs. I think it would be good if you came along." Lucas had already stood and was bracing his grandfather on the other side. "We really couldn't see anything. What's going on over there?" Jack just shook his head. "Rather than trying to explain to others, listen to what they're saying and let me know what the rumors are." "Okay, we can do that, can't we, Adam?" Both men looked at each other and smiled. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. "But I don't understand why Jason was arrested." The old man was still sifting through the papers and stacks of folders. "I'm sorry, but there are about 8 people swept up. It is corporate espionage. We had spyware installed in our system, and we had people in our organization that were not supposed to be there, and were also arrested because they were causing damage." "Is Jason really involved?" "His girlfriend certainly is. Look, you know Jason, and I have a score to settle. This is not that, I promise you. This was..." Sarah came to sit next to Servino Sr. "Sir, it's my fault. I discovered an irregularity in the accounting department. Which led to the discovery of other people that were a problem. And then to foreign... what did they call it? It's not spyware, but it's like that. Anyways, there were a lot of people recently let go from the company, and new security measures put in place because of me. So I'm sorry that it's reached your door." She put her hand on his forearm, looked deep into the old man's eyes, and smiled at him. I know that you are direct competitors in many areas." Competitors with Jack. "I know that you're direct competitors with Jack in many areas. But if our system could be so thoroughly infiltrated and compromised..." The old man patted her hand. "My house needs to be cleaned too. I don't know if Jason has direct involvement with these issues, but he is definitely involved with the 3 people that we have identified. With 3 of the people we've identified." "But why was he arrested?" Jack answered the old man. Um, yeah. But why was he arrested? Jack answered the old man. I've been working with the legal team, and they've been working with the prosecutor. There are things that are beyond my control, connections and evidence that I don't know about. The old man lowered his head and scrubbed his eyes. I appreciate that. We've been able to keep things between us and deal with it ourselves all these years. I don't want this to damage our relationship. Neither do I, sir. Why didn't you watch all the videos? Langston, can you give him a station and provide him the relevant files? With the relevant files. Mr. Servino, it might take some time to review everything. We could get you a copy. I want to call someone and then I'll sit with them. I want to call someone and then I'll sit with him and watch this. Make me a copy, but don't give it to me yet. The old man was on his phone in the corner, slowly pacing and looking unsteady. Jack watched him carefully. The last thing he wanted was the head of a family collapsing while being his guest. Jack received 3 short and angry texts from his Grandma Till. He finally responded and gave her the room number to their headquarters. Where he was held up with old man Servino. Let me get rid of this. With Servino Sr. With the old man. I'm going to say I'm just going to put old man. No. Servino Sr. Senio. Held up with Servino Sr. It wasn't long until there was a loud rapping at the door. Grandma Till pushed Jack to the side and locked eyes. I'm going to say old man because it's more. It wasn't long until there was a loud rapping at the door. Grandma Till pushed Jack to the side and locked eyes on the back of Servino Sr. Enzo. The old man turned around, startled, and then had a sour expression spread across his face. Get over here as soon as you have taken care of that. I have to go now. Get over here as soon as you've taken care of that. I have to go now. Matilda. She nodded and went to the couch where the pile of folders was spread across the short table. The old man sat in a single overstuffed chair to the side of Jack's grandmother. What is this? Jack, the old woman demanded. Jack has shared with me why my grandson was taken away today. Jack, you were the one to embarrass us today. I did not know until a few minutes before. Where's Lily? Jack had a twinge of fear, made eye contact with Johnson, but relaxed as he pointed to the door of the bathroom. His grandmother started looking methodically through the folders of material. You should not be sharing this with anyone. Servino S-E-R. Vino Sr. is not just anyone. Jack stirred his fingers over the small table, covered in paper. Business involves all of us. We're not family. We're not even married to each other. There are more important things that bind us together. Judy-doo. Sarah was still wrapped in her 2 layers of pajamas, but had not used the sleeping bag for weeks. Jack was still pleased to have her in his arms, and she wrapped around him. Yeah. She was sleeping soundly, and he loved holding her this way, stroking her hair. However, he was still having trouble sleeping. It was around 3 in the morning. However, he was still having trouble. Okay, that's good. It was around 3 in the morning when they were notified that Jason had been stabbed in detention. It was 6 in the morning before they could leave the hospital. It was agreed upon that they would just sleep during the day and meet for dinner to decide on any new steps. Jason would need to be hospitalized for 2 more days just in time to get out for the wedding. All the girls that had been circulating around Jason when he was well never appeared. By his side, by his hospital bed, the only one that stayed by his side in the hospital was his cousin Gina, 2 years older than Jason. Gianna. No, cousin Gianna. I'm going to make sure I have her name. I'm not sure I do. Copy. No. Marchetti's cousin Gianna. Okay, good. Two years older than Jason. John had always seen Gianna around when visiting Servino Sr., but she was quiet and stuck to the elders. She'd been at dinner with Sarah, but had not spoken except with Sarah when they were quiet and away from the dining table. Sarah started to stir in his arms, stretching and groaning. Her legs pushed the blankets off him. Then she moved her ankles back up to his hips, and he swallowed hard at the pressure. Her hands wrapped around his neck, and she pulled herself up against him so she could kiss his mouth. It's not yet Saturday evening, my dear. You need to control yourself. Her voice hoarse from sleep. Just one kiss, 1 minute. He growled at her and then let her have her way. She seemed not to object to his hands exploring. It didn't matter now that he knew he could restrain himself, no matter how difficult she made it for him. And I'm going to do this. There. But this afternoon, she'd begun to explore as well, and was far too active. Without realizing what he was doing, his hand gripped her backside and was using her in place of his hand. She had her leg hooked up over his hip, and he could feel the heat feel her heat. Even through the layers of clothing. She was busy with his mouth, and he was near release, and he didn't care. Frankly, he wasn't thinking, just enjoying his time through. Thank you. I thought, I probably need to pick pause. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go look it up and make sure I'm picking the right word. Oh, yeah. Through now. No. No, wrong word. I can tell I'm getting tired because I'm starting to have trouble. Ha. So I did have the right word. That is the correct word. Leave it alone. I love that both programs are fighting each other on picking which word is correct. Even through the layers of clothing. She was busy with his mouth, and he was near release and didn't care. Frankly, he wasn't thinking, just enjoying his time with her, and she certainly seemed to be doing the same. Everyone who'd spent the night at the hospital had agreed they could put their phones on silent, and if there was a real emergency, a knock at the door would suffice. So Jack was sure their amorous activities would not be disturbed. None of this was conscious thought at the time. He was simply reveling in the pleasure. She was making some delightful noises as he felt his body tense and his toes starting to curl, and that shiver down his spine. His body tense, and his toes began to curl, and that shiver down his spine. Nope, I'm leaving it there because it's this kind of... it's part of the poetry. At the last moment, he remembered it was okay. He wasn't doing anything wrong. I guess the sentence actually didn't mind if I left out the commas. I'm going to reread this. She was making some delightful noises as he felt his body tense and his toes starting to curl and that shiver down his spine. It's okay, it's poetry. At the last moment, he remembered it was okay. He wasn't doing anything wrong, anything that could compromise her, and he let himself crush her to him as he spilled into his boxers again and again. He looked down into her face. She was still kissing him, having made it down to his collarbone, sucking and biting at him, still moving against him, though now at her own pace. His head cleared, and he wondered, does this count as a night? Will I be like Jacob and feel nothing now, or rather feel disgusted? He stroked her hair, pulling the wet strands off her forehead. She continued to nibble at the flesh around his neck. No. It was a new feeling that went beyond possessiveness. Though she was still technically intact, she was no longer an innocent, and neither was he. She was his. She would be part of him from here on out, and no one would keep her from him. You seem hungry. Do you want ribs for dinner? She giggled and gave his shoulder a bite. I need a shower, but I'm starving. At that, she leapt backwards. At that, she leapt backwards. Okay. Out of bed and his grasp. She always surprised him how she could move like a startled cat and suddenly be free from his grasp. He did suppose that was a good thing, and just as it did for the alley cat, allowed her to survive. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. Jack could assume there had been no emergencies, as there had been no knock on his door. Instead, they had simply been kind, and the elders had taken on the command center on decision-making. It was a relief to see Grandma Till having taken charge of the situation. She was decisive and would make sure their interests were protected. There was a last-minute addition to the wedding party, however. A fourth groom and bride. Jason was having a suit made to match Jack's, his measurements having been taken in the hospital. He'd been under sedation, and his consent was not sought. The bride was a young girl, Sophia Braddock, so a relation to Jack. Nope, I'm leaving it like that. Jack had been introduced, but could not place her. His grandmother had assured him. So, relation. I'm going to get rid of this. Jack had been introduced, but could not place her. His grandmother had assured him she was his niece, and had been to the old house many times. Sophia had been one of Charlie's admirers, and had found herself in a condition that required urgent action. Jack had stared at her photo for a long time, but it wasn't until he saw her move across the dance floor that he recognized her. She was Sarah's age, still in high school. Other than the occasional dinner, he had no interaction with the child. Servino Sr. had simply made the decision for Jason. He was not in a position to refuse his grandfather, as he had many family debts to pay now. Sarah, of course, had an opinion. What has she done that is so terrible that she has to be married to Jason? Servino Sr. gave Sarah the first unpleasant look he'd ever done towards her. It's not a punishment to marry my grandson. She is expecting, and so has been compromised. I know Jason has a reputation, but I certainly did not... Oh, I know Jason has a reputation, but he certainly did not do that to that young girl. I've met her. She's quite bright. She has decent grades, but she's more into the arts. You know her. We've talked. We didn't go to the school together. Sarah twitched, remembering herself. But we have a lot in common, and talked for quite some time over the last few weeks. She has dreams. Well, right now, to stay out of a nightmare, she needs to get married. Really? That's the solution to everything. She needs his name. Jason is in no position to refuse to cause trouble. They can get divorced after a few years if they really don't get along. Is Jason aware of this? I told him whether his anesthetized brain can understand is another matter. Listen, it doesn't matter. No, it does not matter what his opinion is. If I have to break his legs, he will behave for the next few years and give that girl some peace. Listen to me. If you don't tell me the details, I'm just going to go straight and ask her. There have been people who have seen this wedding as an opportunity. Gomez finally spoke up, tired of the subterfuge. She was in the wrong place. It was similar to the situation you met Jack in. Oh no! Jason was caught in his own trap. Not Jason, but he will pay for it. Servino Sr. growled. Is she okay? I mean, we've only been at this venue for, 2 weeks now? Three, and that's how far along she is. After the incident, she's been staying at her room. 3, and that's how far along she is. After the incident, she's been staying in her room or under guard. Oh, that's not fair. Well, she made a decision. And so this is the solution. Do you mean she was the one who... No, she was the one in the wrong place when there was a raging hormone and a locked door. Well, this is Jason's penance then. Sarah patted the old man's arm. Servino Sr. shook his head and rubbed his eyeballs again. I'm still starving. Can we go down to dinner? Toodly-doo. The guests were a bit more sparse. No, it's the poetry of it. I would love to see what... that would be a fun thing. To put Shakespeare into Word and see what Grammarly thinks of that. The guests were a bit more sparse, and the atmosphere subdued. Sarah asked her old friend, Sally, to sit with them, even though she was in the middle of her shift. Sally had declined to be a bridesmaid. She argued she was no longer a maid, nor did she want to be associated with the Braddock or Marksman families that way. She was worried all her achievements and promotions to catering supervisor would be assumed to be favoritism or family connections, even if it were the case. Sally did have a perfectly reasonable excuse for sitting at the table this evening and enjoying a meal. Sarah was happy to see the face of her old friend. Yes, I've met everyone, or at least I know who they are. Well, this is Sally Lambkin, and she has organized all the feast for you, and I'm pretty sure I have her name. Sarah's friends. Yep. And she has organized all the feasts for us. The food's been wonderful. Have you done this for long? Asked Cora. I was recently promoted, but I've worked for the hotel for over a decade. She touched her lapel and her 10-year pin. Alan asked lazily, So you are a career woman? Yes, I have mouths to feed and hospital bills to pay, so I must work. Do you like it? Sally took 2 breaths before she answered. Sally took 2 breaths before she answered. Yes, but it was not my original intention when I went to school. I'd been planning to be a lawyer, but this paid better than those internships, and 1 year led to the next. Did you pass the bar? I never took it. I had a family emergency just before graduation. I'm afraid I needed a job that paid well immediately. Working in a hotel really pays better than a lawyer. Intern, yes, quite a bit better, especially if you serve drinks and are willing to wear a short skirt. Sally and Sarah started giggling. Miss Lily, may I ask what you feel is so amusing? Asked Ellen. Nothing you need to know about. Then don't giggle. Now you have to share. Don't giggle. Now you have to share. I will only share if you will allow me to demonstrate on you, Alan. No, this sounds dangerous. Then you don't need to know. But ladies, Sally will teach us some tricks on wardrobe management later. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. Jack heard whispers with rippling around the edges of the room. He too had been startled to see Jason, parked in a wheelchair on the left side of the stage, and the dark bruises on his face were more pronounced because of the light cream quipo he'd been stuffed into. Jason was confined and angry. He had been coerced into this as penance for his crimes. Jack again looked behind him. If it weren't for the subtle blue of Noah's jacket and the yellows of Lucas, you would think all of them groomsmen, as all their friends and cousins, even many of the elders, had matching white and gold quipos. He did have to admit they were a handsome bunch. Finally, Cora was marched in, and her father, with tears running down his cheeks, was only outdone by her grandfather. Angela had Uncle Stephen. No, that's not his name. That's what he's doing. Angela had his uncle no, I'm going to say their. Their. Their Uncle Stephen walk her in. His face was stone, as he'd been forced by Grandma Till to do the honors. Then his Sarah. She was so lovely, with those dark black curls and fair rosy skin. She seemed to sparkle in the light, and her escort was her Billy. He wore the same quipo Jack had, and he looked far more handsome than Jack was comfortable with. But a handsome boy, he reminded himself. Billy's eyes were glistening. Jack was hoping they were tears of grief, knowing he'd lost Sarah to him. She continued patting Billy's hand to try to comfort him, but she gave Jack that dazzling smile that always stunned him. And this, he knew, was not an act. The last bride walking towards the stage in the same white and gold dress as Sarah's. The last bride walking towards the stage in the same white and gold dress as Sarah's, but looking so different. Looked so different on Sophia. Let's see. Okay, the last bride walked towards the stage in the same white and gold dress as Sarah's, but looking so different on Sophia. She had the same coloring as her father, walking her in, fair skin, icy blue eyes, and light blonde hair, making her disappear against the cream of the dress. Though she was the same age as Sarah, they were such polar opposites. When approaching the stage, Sarah, the willing bride, bright, bubbly, and full of joy, the other, forced by circumstances, trying to make herself invisible as possible. The forced smile and glistening eyes made her pitiful. Jack watched carefully. Though he was not close to the girl, she was family after all, and Jason should not embarrass her by pulling away. Jason held her hand and made eye contact with her on stage. He, too, was forcing a smile. They had promised 5 years, and then they could plead their case. Jack was thankful he had always kept his nose clean, though he didn't want just 5 years, but a lifetime. They had forgone personalized protests of love, but it was disconcerting to have so many male voices go off at the same moment saying "I do." Jack was certain he'd heard an extra few "I do's" from behind him. Oh. Period. He quickly glanced around, and there were a number of his groomsmen who had stupid grins on their faces. Just as the ladies were about to say "I do," Sophia began to sob loudly, enough to interrupt the service. Jason tried to comfort her, then gave up and shook her. Tried to comfort her, then gave up. On shaking her and pulled her into an embrace. Jason tried to comfort her, then gave up on shaking her. No, gave up. Tried to comfort her, then shook her. Tried to comfort her, then gave up, shaking her, and pulled her into an embrace and whispered, shaking her, maybe comma. I'm trying to make this like this is the order that he did it. Jason tried to comfort her, then gave up, shaking her a few times. Times, comma, then pulled her into an embrace. Jason tried to comfort her, then gave up, shaking her a few times, then pulled her into an embrace and whispered something. Sarah had put her hand on the girl's back. Sarah had put her hand on the girl's back, and after she made eye contact with Sarah and a few more quiet words from Jason, she stifled her sobs. The priest began the oath again as the priest began the oath again, just as a glass smashed in the back of the room, and a shrill voice of a harpy charged forward. "I object." Alan on the stage was quick to point out. "This is not that part of the ceremony. You may have to wait a moment." In fact, that question was purposely not asked. There were ripples of laughter through T-H-R-O-U through. There were ripples of laughter through the audience. No, I liked it, in fact. There were ripples of laughter through the audience. I object and I don't care. It's illegal and it's not right. Grandma Till stood. By all means, let her speak. Now is certainly the time to air all the dirty laundry. The cameras are rolling. The harpy was still too far away for Jack to make out. Make her features clearly. No, make out. Her features clearly. No. That's correct. The harpy was still too far away for Jack to make out her features clearly, but she had the same posture that he'd seen in the pictures of Sarah's mother. He felt the grip on his arm tighten, but Sarah too was straining to identify the woman approaching the stage. I don't agree. You can't do this. The family does not agree. It's illegal. What exactly do you object to, Grandma Till? Asked Grandma Till. They should be arrested for corruption. You should all be arrested for promoting this sort of thing. Alan stepped to the edge of the stage. Jack was surprised as he held the hand of Adam. Mom, this is not the time for this discussion. You're interrupting people's marriages. Don't lie to me. You're getting married today. I'm a groomsman, Mother. There are 4 couples on the stage, and time is short. Then who sent me this announcement? Mother, take a seat and enjoy the show. Alan stepped back, pulling Adam with him, aligning themselves with the rest of the groomsmen. Jack decided he needed to say something. Are there any other objections? A young man in the back stood up. I think you've kidnapped my sister, and you should be arrested. And which one of these ladies is your sister? Sarah Wilson. She's the one you're holding on to. You are rich, and you think you can get away with anything, and not even have to pay the family for her. Sarah stepped forward. My name is Lillian Sarah Smith. I'm afraid you're the wrong person. At least it would be legally Tuesday. They had an appointment. When the boy rushed the stage, the guard stepped in to stop him, but Sarah shook her head. No. He made his stand by the last pew. Mom is in the hospital. Do you know Dad's dead? He died weeks ago. And where have you been? Playing with these rich people? Have you no shame? I'm sorry that your mother is in the hospital, but I'm afraid you have the wrong person, young man. I would know your bones. It's you. Sarah Wilson. You disappeared and took all of our money, and now you're going to cheat more people. Gomez, will you please escort the young man to the guest room and sort out what he's talking about and who he is? Yes, ma'am. Johnson picked up the young man, keeping his arms restrained behind him as he kicked and thrashed, screaming repeatedly, I knew you were alive. That's you, Sarah. Ackerman, can you hear me? Sarah spoke at the same volume, and over the speaker system there was a simple yes. Will you please display my student ID? Yes, ma'am. There's one thing I have held back from all of you. Sophie and I are the same age, gasped from around the room. I'm afraid I'm a bit advanced for my years academically, and I'm treated so. But the law does not agree. I have earned a spot at Columbia, but will not be attending until next year. The other problem is people don't respect a 17-year-old girl giving orders from an executive office, do they? She raised one fine eyebrow at the crowd. So, for others to better swallow my directions, I lied about my age. Are there any objections out there? There were murmurs and ripples to the through T-H-R-O-U-G-H through the crowd, and a few snickers. A thin young man stood up. Phone. phone pointed at them. Would you object to the headline, Child Brides Taken by Rich Playboys? I would, said Jack. Sarah spoke next. I would object. Jack is not a playboy. An anonymous voice from the audience yelled out, but Jason is. Are we going to condemn a playboy to a life without true love and a good wife? No? Good, I'm glad to see it. I'm glad you see it that way. If there are no other objections. Sarah's student ID, freshly minted a week ago, was projected behind them. Whispers again went through the room. Good. Now can we continue? These shoes are killing me, and I'm hungry. There was a sporadic burst of laughter at Sarah's flippant declaration, and she winked at the elders on the front pew. No, not on, in. Jack noticed Grandma Till's shoulders slump as tension seemed to uncoil from her. The priest cleared his throat. May I continue? Someone from the audience yelled, Yes, please. The room burst into laughter again. The priest began the oath, but paused for a moment and looked around the audience, snorted, and began the rest of it. In unison, 4 women said, I do. No seemed much more infatuated by his ring than any of the women. After slipping the ring on Sophia's finger, Jason never made eye contact with her again, but continued to scan the room. As it was announced they could kiss their brides, Jack took Sarah in his arms and kissed her soundly. There was a squeal from behind him that stopped their kiss. Cora had been thrown over Lucas's shoulder, and he was running down the aisle and out the back door to whoops of laughter. Jack noted that Jason had not kissed his bride, but she had leaned down and given him a tentative kiss on his cheek. Jason was startled by it, having long ago checked out from the ceremony. They had made their bargain, and he had to live by the constraints of their promises. He was going to have to honor their bargain. Jason was going to have to honor their bargain. Oh. Oh, no, Jack. It is Jack. Sorry, I didn't. That's why it's important to put names sometimes. They had made their bargain and were going to have to live by the constraints of their promises. Jack was going to have to Jack was going to have to honor their bargain, but his were not constraints. I like Lucas's idea. Sarah playfully smacked Jack's shoulder, then put her arms above her head and raised one slender eyebrow. He finally understood and bent down to sweep her up over his shoulder, and ran out the back as Lucas had done. Voices yelled out and laughter erupted. Alan pulled Adam over his shoulder in a fireman's lift and ran out of the room, following Jack. That elicited the whole room to erupt and cheer. Jack glanced back at the spectacle, and both men were big. Jack glanced back at the spectacle, and both men with big, stupid grins on their faces. He was glad he had some new friends. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. Jack was surprised that Sarah sat at the opposite end of the room on a stool, so far out of reach of the young man, with snot collected beneath his nose, and tears streaking his face. Ryan Wilson, 16, is still considered freshman due to poor academic performance. Over $400,000 in debt on credit cards taken out by his father, Gerald Wilson. That got the boy's eyes to meet hers. I'm going to say Sarah's. And it's quite... Oh, and his quiet cursing to stop. Okay. That got the boy's eyes to meet Sarah's, and his quiet cursing to stop. Martha Wilson was recently hospitalized for pain generalized No other diagnosis given. You're not going to go see your mother? My mother is not in the hospital. Yes, she is. She was there this morning. You and I do not have the same mother, nor the same father. We are not related. I grew up with you. I've seen you naked. Jack's eyes twitched at that declaration, but Sarah continued. Seeing someone naked does not... Oh, you know what? It should be not Gomez. It should be Sarah read the report to the room. My mother's not in the hospital. Yes, she is. She was there this morning. You and I do not have the same mother, nor the same father. We are not related. I grew up with you. I've seen you naked. Jack's eyes twitched at that declaration, but Sarah continued. Seeing someone naked does not make them related to you. If that were the case, Jack here would have an enormous family. Johnson let out a snort. In fact, I'd be related to the big man, too. Is that just one way, or have you both seen each other naked? Sarah smacked Jack. That is for his question. You are my sister, my family. Gomez has done some research on that. Ryan, your father died rather recently, just after he had... Gomez has done some research on that, Ryan. Your father died rather recently, just after he had his stepdaughter, your sister Sarah Wilson, kidnapped to pay off his debts. I don't know what you're talking about. Gomez slapped the file folder down in front of the child, and Johnson let go of the boy's wrists. Gomez was pleased with himself. Period. He finally had a place to show off all that he'd created. Tears began to run down the boy's face as he carefully examined the photos of the back of the black van, and the blood sprayed on the interior walls. Where's her body? There are a few unclaimed in the city that match her description, but none of them match any of your DNA, and neither does this woman's. Gomez pointed his thumb at Sarah. Why are you showing me this photo, then? This is the van that kidnapped your sister. Keep looking through the evidence so you can see when your father's loans were forgiven. The men involved admitted to it and explained they were simply collecting on your father's debt, per his suggestion. No, my dad. Your dad wouldn't... What? He always had me follow her. I knew you worked at the hotel. I watched you. So you did have a job after all, but you got the wrong girl. I told him I saw you go into that community in a big fancy car. He figured you had finally hooked yourself a rich man. Or at least were working for a wealthy family. What was the plan? I don't know. The boy looked at his feet. Well, it's over now. Your father's debt is canceled. Yours, however, is not. Nor is your mother's. Really, why did they forgive Dad's debt? No, it should be Dad's plural. Debt. D-E-B-T, debt. Really, why did they forgive Dad's debt? Whatever happened to the back of that van must have satisfied it. Oh, it's capital Dad's. Duh, because it's a specific person. Really, why did they forgive Dad's debt? Whatever happened to the back of that van must have satisfied it. No, Sarah's in front of me. She's right there. I will give you one opportunity. This one time. You attend the school I send you to. Keep your grades above a B and yourself out of trouble. I'll make the credit card debt disappear. After high school, If you are honestly discharged, oh, honorably, not honestly, honorably, Honerbly, honorably? Man, it's not spelled right. Honorably. After high school, if you're honorably discharged after 4 years in the military and or receive a bachelor's degree, your choice of area, I will pay for your schooling. What? I'm not good at school, but you can attend classes and tutoring. It's your choice now to be saddled with that debt for the rest of your life, or put in some effort for a few years and have it disappear. It disappeared. The boy was quiet. Why don't you finish looking at the paperwork in front of you? And what happened to your sister because of your dear father? Why would you help me? Lily asked me to. It made her sick to her stomach to see what people can do to their children because they have an insatiable addiction. I guess you touched her heart. What about my mother? Keep looking through the files. She has her own debts. Gomez will try to procure her health records, but you being her only family left would have easier access. I would suggest you examine them carefully. 3 more minutes to look at this paperwork and think about it. If you decide to go to school of my choice and abide by the agreement, Gomez will be your contact, and you'll be attending before the end of the week. If you choose not to accept my offer, you're free to go now. But I don't want to see your face ever again. You are really not my sister. We have no blood relation. And they have found her body. None of the bodies found match you. I don't need 3 minutes. I don't need 3 minutes. I'll take your deal. And your mother? I'll tell her I got a scholarship. She's got Dad's disability, so she can survive. Johnson, do you mind escorting him to the academy? Ryan, you can take that folder with you. Good luck. The boy stood and took a step towards Sarah. All 3 men took a step towards him. His shoulders fell, and he took one last look at her face, and then turned to leave the room. Jack had seen people's spirits leave them in boardrooms when they realized they had no chance of getting the contract signed, but this was a whole different level. The boy's world had been completely upended, but not quite as upended as it could have been. Gomez, can you deal with the details of the registration? You're right, Lily. He's not the brightest. After the door shut. Gomez, can you deal with the details of registration? You're right, Lily. He's not the brightest. He failed to ask some important questions. The woman in the hospital, do you want to confront her with the facts? No. We really have no idea whose parents are. It's neither of the 2 people that raised you. Gomez never found evidence of money transfer from abroad, only a large transfer when you would have been 2 years old. Thank you for doing that for him. The rest is up to him. Does it make you feel better knowing you're not related to those people by blood? Asked Gomez. I've always been a big proponent of choosing one's family. Yes, I'm very glad that I'm not related to those people. So many things make sense. I thought the books had it wrong. My mother's always had a strong dimple in her chin, and I assumed I got my smooth one from my father. Do you want us to keep looking for your family? You put it in the database. I have no urgent need. I have other urgent needs, and we have a reception dinner to go to. Gomez cleared his throat. Do I leave, or do you? Sarah threw a cushion at him. Sarah threw a cushion from the couch at Gomez. We'll leave. Doodly-doo. Jack, it's been a year. Are you ready to return to the company? No, Gomez can continue running things. I'm busy. I'm going to leave it there and see if it works. Jack, it's been a year. Are you ready to return to the company? Asked Swanson. No, Gomez can continue running things. I'm busy. Manufacturing? Yes, I'm afraid I was a bit too active. We are expecting again. Jackie's only 3 months old. Oh, Jacob. Not Swanson asked Jacob. Jack, it's been a year. Are you ready to return to the company? Asked Jacob. No, Gomez can continue running things. I'm busy. Manufacturing? Yes, I'm afraid I was a bit too active. We are expecting again. Jackie's only 3 months old. Isn't there some sort of rule? Jacob, I have never suffered from your condition. It's quite the opposite. I have even more trouble keeping my hands off her now. Really, even after all that birthing, I understand it changes things. It does. I realized she was pregnant again before she did. Ew, did you poke anything? You didn't poke anything, did you? You need a basic anatomy class, Jacob. Her breasts, they're twice as big and full. She's still breastfeeding. You mean they get bigger and better? Sorry. I need to work on the punctuation here. You need a basic anatomy class, Jacob. Her breasts, they're at least twice as big and full. She's still breastfeeding. You mean they get bigger and better? Do you know what happens? Do you know how I can tell that I've satisfied my wife? No idea. I assume she screams. A scream is the only thing that gets scream is not the only thing that gets released. I don't understand you, Jack. Her body is a magical wonderland, and it's all mine to play with, every night and a few times during the day, unlike some dogs who actually have to work for it. Are you saying marriage is simply an easier way to ensure a snag? Oh, Are you saying marriage is simply an easier way to ensure a shag? Well, I think the quality of the spouse and her brain is very important. It makes the time between the shags more enjoyable, but I can guarantee you I'm going to be shagging more this week than you have in the last year. Doubtful. You always text our little group to brag about your conquests. Unless you've stopped the practice, you haven't had much action between the sheets. I don't believe it. I will only keep track of it for 1 week. Wait for my texts. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. Sarah was still shuddering beneath him, his body wet from her excitement, when the phone lit up Jack's face. What are you doing? No pictures. Bragging. You are not. I was trying to explain to Jacob how magical and wonderful marriage is to you. That means you need to text him while you're still connected to me. Yes, if I'm going to text him again in the next 20 minutes. He kissed her forehead. She smacked him in the shoulder and tried to wiggle it out from underneath him. Oh no, you're not getting away that easy. Hold on. The end. Done. Okay, that was the whole book. Yes, I can follow up with other human stories, but that was fun. Thank you for listening. And do subscribe. It will really super duper help. Good night, humans.